Okay, so finally, we want to use those utilities functions and the API fetch methods in our component. And so on the left, as you can see, this is still the main canvas. And to access the historical grid, we want to use the route. Let's just return a div here. Let's say historical grid. And head over to our app.txx. We want to add a route over here. Be careful. You want to add the route so that it's before the home path. Otherwise it will always go to the home path and not the history route. So we'll say let's so define this new path. Okay. Then in our actual app, we'll head over to history, and then you just see why is it not loading? Let's have a look. Everything is unless I have a typo. History, yeah. So I had a typo over there in the path. Let's re-render that again. So yeah, so this is the historical grid that we have. So now we just need to type in the boilerplate code for this component. So over here, this is the finished product of the component. The header over here and the footer over here will be done by JSON, so we don't have to worry about it over here. So as you can see on our actual grid component, we'll have the title with the list of canvas IDs and the main grid itself, and the footer with the date and a few buttons that help us to navigate. Right. So what we can do over here is we'll say we can we'll just say main, and then we want to say, okay, this is going to be our title. We'll say list of canvas IDs, and then in the bottom we'll want to say let's just return. So to get the canvas IDs, so this historical data is has all the canvas IDs as the keys. So we can use that to help us get all the canvas IDs. Map canvas ID, and then so these are all going to be buttons, and we want to also use the index as our unique keys for each of our component. So we'll say canvas ID, and then key equals index, and then we'll later want to provide a OnClick function to it. OnClick. So a brief overview of what this OnClick function will do is it would just a second. So a brief overview of what it does would be that when you click it, it changes our canvas ID state. So in fact, we can actually implement here real quick. We will say const on select canvas ID, and then I should take in new canvas ID parameter, and it will just change our selected canvas ID state. Over here we can apply it. Why is this complaining? Passing error. Okay, we can deal with that in a second. I think we need parentheses. Sweet. And we'll add that to our OnClick function. We'll say on select ID ID. So this is our button. So this is our button, and this is our title, and the button's done. Now we just need to add in. We need to add in. Oh, we got an error. Cannot find on select. Oh yeah, it's another typo. And this one should be a number, so apply the number, turn this string into a number. And this is saying here, argument of type I transform historical data or undefined is not assignable to a type of object. So do some conditional check here. We'll say if historical data, if historical data, then return this. Else, we can use the circular's progress component to indicate that our component is still loading or still fetching the data. We'll return circular progress. So we want to import from our this is our customized circular progress component. That's the utilities to tell us. Wait a second. We just have to manually import it. So it's within. This is within the component. And we'll just do a single circular progress. Circular progress. This imports our loading icon. Then we'll just need to implement. So we'll wrap this inside a header component, indicate that this is our header. Now what is this giving me error? I need to add this. Now we just add in the actual grid. So we'll say grid, and then this should take in, okay, we do import it ourselves. We can import from this grid and grid. And this is, so this grid is not editable, so this is false. And what's the other one? And I think it takes in the colors prop, the color array prop, and this is gonna be our colors state. So currently it's an empty array, so this grid will return nothing. Okay, there's a few issues. Some parentheses matching problem. I think we are fine. Okay, so this is our grid done. Now then we just need to implement our footer. So this is going to be the date, the current selected date, and 3 buttons. So we'll say let's do a footer over here. We'll say typography, and to get our date, we'll just do, so we'll utilize this canvas modified dates state. So to get the date, we can just do canvas modify date. First one. We will access it using our current canvas ID and also the current date index. So this is how it access the current date. And we'll do a few buttons. So the first button is we can actually, is the previous button. We can actually extract it out as a separate component itself. So we'll say conf prev button equals, going to be a button. We'll say we'll disable it. Disabled equals, it will be true if it's on the very first state. So we say if the current date index equals to 0, and we'll do a placeholder function for the OnClick function here, and it should say last date. Okay, and then let's do our the next button. So similarly, would be a button, and then we want to disable it when it is when we are on our the last state, the index of our last state. So we can do so what we can do is we can do if the canvas modified dates and with all the dates, so we selected canvas ID, and then you do you access the current. Oh yeah, so we need to actually get the length. So what is it? It's a type of. I need to get it by to get all the dates. Yeah, I think that should be fine. That's a type of array already. So you just do let's get the length. Let's get the length of that. Minus 1. So if the current selected if the current date index equals this, then disable it. And we'll say next date for this one. And then let's give it a placeholder OnClick Functions here. Okay, so we can actually extract to further refactor our components. I will always want to modularize our functions. So we'll define a separate function called no pre, and then we'll extract this out. We'll say we will use it in our pre button, and similarly we'll say once next equals this, and then we just copy and paste this over here. So this is our pre and the next button done, and we can use it over here. We can just plug it in to say pre button next button, and finally we want to add this another button that takes us back to the home. So we say const home button. So it will be a button with a link inside it. I think it's blue, so I think that's the default color of this link. So this link is gonna import that from the React Router DOM library. React Router DOM, and then import the link component from there. And it's gonna take us back to the home. So this is a home button done. Then we just insert it. We'll insert it over here, home button. And then now if we check out, let's see what will happen if we save the current component. I think it should just keep on showing us the loading icon, and then it will never show us what happens afterwards. Oops, hold up. Cannot find name, new canvas ID. Oh, yeah, so it's a typo. And what does this say? Card date and weeks. So there's a typo there again. And this is saying object is possibly undefined. We know that when our okay, so it's the same thing over here. So we only load this component if the modified canvas modified date and the historical data is rendered. So if it's not undefined. So over here we can apply an exclamation mark at the end to say that. So it's called a non-null assertion to declare that it will always be defined. Okay, let's save this again. I think, yep. So at the moment, all it shows us as is just this circular progress component because we are not fetching out data yet. So next up, we want to actually fetch the data and then update the state, and we want to code up our OnClick functions for our next and the pre button respectively. So to do that, to fetch our data, I would like to say we'll use effect. So fetch the data once component is mounted. So I would do the fetching and loading the fetching and setting logic inside the separate onLoad component function. So I would like to first, so this is going to be a synchronous function. I would like to first fetch our historical data, and then next up I want to actually transform this. So we go back to our history. So I'll show you in our utilities function. If we go back to our grid history, so what we want to do is we first fetch the historical data, and we want to actually transform the historical data. So we set the state on this historical data state over here. So we want to actually say transform equals transform historical data first, and then set the state on historical data. And we want to set our historical, and then we want to set our historical data dates. Historical data dates. So we will utilize this historical data dates helper function. You can just say const modified dates equals historical data dates, and then of our transform, and then we'll set the state using this modified dates. Cool. And last but not least, we will also want to say we also want to set our canvas ID key. So initially, let's import all these first. Initially, we will have. I just like to use a placeholder here. We just say the first canvas ID key equals number object of keys transform. So we just always use the first one because we are not sure. You can use oh, it's a promise. Oh yeah, that's right. So I need to await this. So that should be good. So the reason why I choose the first one is that you know that if I fetch any data, it will have at least one element inside the canvas ID keys. So using the first one is the safe bit. Then we set the selected canvas ID key using this value. So this is our onLoad component done, and we will actually want to set the colors of the component. So do that in a separate use effect function. So we want to fetch the data about for the colors whenever a new canvas ID is selected. So what we will do is we'll say if selected canvas ID does not equal to -1, and the canvas modified date is defined. We will say canvas that we want to fetch is await get canvas by ID, and then use the selected canvas ID, and then we'll say the colors array we will use is, and then this is the interesting part, we'll just say it's an empty array now. So we want to see what is the data type that we get. What is the data type that we get from this canvas? So head back to our get canvas ID function. We just go to the API file. So as you can see, the get canvas by ID function return a promise of canvas data. So what it has here is it has a 1D array of color data. So to help you get a better understanding, we will get the canvas ID. So we'll say let's try to get the second one. So we've already executed the functions, the request over here. So the color data is an array of these objects, So we want to extract all these onto a 2D array. So to do that, I would like to define another function here called sort_const. We'll say extract colors. So what this does is it will take in an array of color data array, color data, and then we want to say what is the grid size? The grid size should be the square root of the length, because it will always be a square grid, but n by n grid. And then we want to initialize our colors with array. So I want to initialize a 2D array with this grid size by grid size 2D array using this the grid size value. So we'll say it's going to be a nested array, and then we'll spread array of grid size, new method, so method for every element inside it, return another array of grid size, and fill that with this empty strings. So this will give us a grid size by grid size 2D array. And next up, we want to, so as you can see in the data here, all the column index and the row index are not in any particular orders. So we want to sort our color data array first by its row index, then by its column index. So to do that, we want to utilize a helper library called Lodash. So let's go ahead and install that Lodash and then install its respective types, type of Lodash. And over here we just pretend it's already been installed, and then we'll import it. Let's go import underscore from. The reason why we want to use underscore is just that I think that's just what people do. I think it's the best practice when you import from Lodash. they don't talk about any specific reasons, but it's just something that they do. And then we say sorted color data equals use this --dash order by function, order by the canvas. I think it's called color data. I want to extract the the extract colors data function. This function should actually just take in a single canvas, non-array. We want to extract the data from one single canvas. So cool. So we just say canvas and then iCanvas data, and then over here we will just do order the color data of this canvas first by its row index, then secondly by its column index, and then we'll iterate through for let I equal 0 and then I is smaller than grid size plus. Oops. Throwing out some errors in my terminal. Cannot find types of low dash. I cannot find the types. Why is it? Maybe there's a typo that I've done. Yeah, so I put in an extra A. Right. And then let's continue to modify our colors array. C equals 0 and C is smaller than our grid size in C++. Then we just say our colors for that particular cell is going to be the sorted color data grid size times our R plus C dot hex. So to understand why it's grid size times R plus C, I think it's better if you play around with it using an example. So this is this function done, and we just return our colors to the end. And this is throwing up some errors. Cannot find it. So we just import it. I think we have to import it ourselves. The IntelliSense does it for us, hopefully. Not yet. We just import it ourselves. iCanvas data. There we go. So this is the grid history. The extract colors helper function done. So we just use the extract colors over here, and then we extract the colors from this particular canvas, and then we want to use set, and then we also want to set our canvas modified dates, because whenever you change the selected canvas, we will also want to the respective modified dates will also change. So we'll say the latest modified dates equals canvas modified dates we'll access it using this canvas ID. And then we'll set the, so because the length of the modified dates has changed, we just say we want to get the latest one, so we just use the length minus 1, so that's the last index, so it should give us the latest date. And then it's set our colors to colors array, and inside this use effect it should have two dependencies. The first one is selected canvas ID, and the second one is canvas modified dates. So the use effect function will be run every time any of these variables, the value of these two states changes. So we'll wrap this inside a sync function because we want to do a wait inside it. Cool. So this will help us basically finish all of our code without, or except we want to do our functions when we click on the HandlePre, or when we click on the prev and the next state button. Come on, IntelliSense. Okay, it's very slow for some reason. We just import it ourselves. So what we want here is I want to get the canvas by ID, and I think if we load this, it should fetch the data and then render the canvas for us over here. So we'll see what it returns. Okay, the colors is not imported from there, isn't it? Oh yeah, sorry, I need to save this file as well. Oh, duplicate import. Cool. Let's just sit back and relax. Let's see what the compiler tells us. Hopefully there's no error. What is it? Cannot find name color data array. Oh, yes. So it should actually be canvas.colorData.net. This is what it should be instead. What is it? Hex does not exist. Did you mean hex? So it's lowercase there. Okay. Alright, let's see what it returns. So give us an empty cannot read property -1 of undefined. So what is the problem here? So we also want to check over here if the selected canvas ID does not equal to -1, and the two states after are defined. Then we render these data. Okay. Oh, I think we just want, it's a black canvas. We actually just do okay, and then we'll do, to avoid that black canvas pop-up, and I think we should be able to have a smooth transition from the loading progress to the grid. Hopefully. Okay, we'll deal with that a bit later. But as you can see here, we we do not have any styling yet, and we haven't done. And let's see what happens if we select our. There we go. So this is. So when you choose a different canvas ID, it shows you the related information about their specific data of that canvas. So here we just apply some basic styling here. We want to center everything. So this is going to be, in this case, align center. So once you center everything, this moves to center. This whole thing should move to the center, and we just want to add some margin to this. I will actually want to change the styles of each of the titles respectively as well. So for this title, let's say we'll give it a variant of H6, and inside this title over here, we will give it a style of, we'll add some margin to its top and bottom. So add some margin to its top and bottom, and no margin to its left and right. And this should also be a variant of, let's say, H6. And actually for all these buttons, we will want it to always be the variant of contain. So to know all these props of the material UI components, the best place to go is obviously the official docs. Okay, let's see what it will give us after some simple styling. Okay, so here you see these buttons here are grouped together, and we will actually want to add some spacings to it. So we'll wrap this inside a separate div, and then this is going to be a flex div. So this is going to flex, and then to add some spacing, we use justify content. You want to say space evenly, I believe. I think we don't actually need to select the canvas ID here. You can check the colors is rendered. I think we do need to. We do need to select the ID. Select the canvas ID. It's not even so we do need that over here. So it was a failed experiment. And let's see. Okay, so the styling of our buttons looks fine for now. And let's see if it directs us back to the home page. Okay, so it did. And we will define some. So currently there's no functions being applied to the OnClick functions of the next and the previous button. So over here we want to define a separate function called HandlePre and handle those are still placeholder functions, but you can change it over here and we'll say HandlePre, and this is going to be handle mix. So I went back and did some debugging. The reason why we see a whole big block of blackness before was that we initialize our colors to an empty array at the start, and then we were checking if colors over here, and they will always evaluate to true because it was a empty array initially. So we'll just say let's just let it be undefined for now. Now let's go ahead and to resolve. So yeah, so it will be initially it will be undefined, so that when the state is updated, it will actually have colors in it, so we wouldn't run into the problems of seeing a whole big block of black stuff. Okay, let's go ahead and finish off our HandlePre and HandleNext functions. So in HandlePre, what we want to do is when you click on this last date button, it should update all the colors of this current grid into the old color of your updated cell from your updated cells. So you would do you access the modified date using canvas modified date selected canvas ID, and you say your current date will be, and then you use another state called modified date, another state called the current date index, and then you want to get all the updated cells from there. So it will be selected canvas ID and your current date, and so then you want to update your colors over here. You say so set state actually accepts a callback. So this callback, and then this callback gives you the current the state, and you can manipulate the state inside this callback. So I want to say let's deconstruct my updated cells. So where was I before? Yep, so I want to get the row, the column, and its O hex of this updated cells, and then we'll say pre state row column equals O hex. So this is our HandlePre function, and we'll actually want to return pre state at the end, and then we'll set our modified the current date index, so we'll decrement that by 1. Current date index minus 1, and then we'll say handle next. So similarly, just like the HandlePre function, we've already defined it here below. There's a placeholder function here. So when you click on, so I'll go back last date, or I'll go to our demo, the finished project. I will say last date, so it goes back. So it uses the O hex of the updated cells of the current date, and then it updates to its rows back to its previous version. And when you do next date, it gets the new hex
of the next state, and then it updates all your grid colors to using that new hex. So to demonstrate that, what we want to do is, so similarly, you will want to get the modified dates, and rather than using the current date, what we want to do is we want to do next state. The next state equals to modified dates, and then the current date index +1. So to make it even more clear, we'll extract this out to a separate variable called next state index. Next state index equals this, and let's get the updated cells again using the next date and the current canvas ID. So we'll say, so this is the benefits of us structuring. This is the benefits of us structuring our data this way, because we can access these updated cells in constant time. We'll do selected canvas ID, and using this next date value, and then similarly we'll use the same thing. We'll say set colors, the prev state equals this for const of these structure, these objects, update the cell. Let's go back and go next, and destructure these cells. So we want to get the row, the column, and the new hex, and let's update our previous state. Row column equals this new hex, and then return this updated prev state inside this callback. And finally, we want to set our current date index to our next date index. Cool. So this is our HandlePre and HandleNext function done. So overall, I think it should work now. And let's just try to test it out over here and see if it actually, I need to go to a different. So it says object is possibly undefined. New hex. This is a typo. Okay. So on the handle prevent, okay, so we know that this will always be, so we do a no null assertion. When we click on, so when the next button is rendered, this historical data will always be defined. So we can be sure that we are safe. And it will load up, and we just do a last date, so it rolls back to the previous version of the grid. And we go to next date, we'll get the newest version of the current date, which is the 30th of the August, and then next date. So so all these functions work as expected. And if we go to our the canvas with ID 7, as you can see, there's no other modified dates other than the 6th of September. And one last thing, when we go back home, we just add a view canvas history link in the bottom. So we will do that inside our latest grid component. Okay, I have to make sure I go to the right file. This is the one. So over here, we want to say div, and then let's give it a button. Let's just do a link of view canvas history. and let's just say it will go to the path of history, and let's import this from React Router DOM. So hopefully it should. Okay. So the IntelliSense is not really providing. We just do it ourselves. So import the link component from React Router DOM. And we will want to center this link. So you just apply a simple text center, test align center. Here we go. And let's see. It's not telling us. Oh yeah. So I wanted to. I'll just use this style on our outer div. So it should hopefully it should center our canvas history. So that looks good. And we go to the, when we click on that, it takes us to the history route, and which renders the historical grid component. So hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for watching the video, and hopefully you enjoyed it and learned something out of it. And good luck for your MSA Phase 2. Thank you.